Today we're going to talk about isosceles and equilateral triangles. So isosceles and equilateral triangles have a lot of unique characteristics to them. And so today we're going to spend some time and we're going to talk about them. So I'm going to highlight my title, just so I can reference it if needed. And I'm going to highlight where it says what is an isosceles triangle. And then I'm going to talk about what is an equilateral triangle. So an isosceles triangle, hopefully you all know what an isosceles triangle is, but if you don't, an isosceles triangle is a triangle with two congruent sides. So in order for a triangle to be isosceles, its two sides, any two of its sides, have to be congruent, and congruent means they are the same length. So we have a base angles theorem for isosceles triangles, and that says if a triangle, it's a symbol for triangle, is isosceles, then the two corresponding angles are congruent. I'm going to do my congruent symbol. So what my base angle theorem tells me is that if a triangle is isosceles, then the two corresponding angles in the triangle are also congruent. So if I look at this picture that I have here, right, this picture, it looks isosceles, but I can't assume it to be isosceles. The only way I could assume it to be isosceles is if I had these tick marks there, because those tick marks mean they're congruent. So then since I have two congruent sides, then I know it's isosceles. So what the base angles theorem is telling me is if I look at this side right here, it corresponds to the angles diagonal to it. So it's corresponding to that angle over here. And if I look at this side right here, it's corresponding to that angle here. It's always diagonal. That's how you know what sides relate to what angles. So that tells me that this angle and this angle are also congruent because their sides are congruent. Now that doesn't mean that the sides equal the angles, because remember, sides are measured in units and angles are measured in degrees. But that just tells me that these two sides, they're congruent, and these two angles, they're also congruent. Okay, so two congruent relationships. So now let's talk about what an equilateral triangle is. An equilateral triangle is a triangle with three congruent sides. Hopefully you're also saying and angles. In order for a triangle to be equilateral, all its sides have to be congruent and all its angles have to be congruent. So my base angles theorem just tells me that if a triangle is equilateral, then all three angles are congruent. And if I show you what I mean, if we look at this side right here, that corresponds to that angle. And this side here corresponds to that angle. And this base corresponds to the top angle. And so since all my sides are congruent, just like isosceles, I can assume my angles are congruent. So it says over here that I'm going to put a nice big colorful cloud around. Each angle in an equiangular triangle measures how much? This word equiangular, I hope you're looking at and saying, I don't know what that means. The word equiangular just means all angles are equal. So if I go back to my equilateral triangle, my equilateral triangle has three congruent angles, and I know all three angles add up to equal 180. So if they're all the same and they all add up to equal 180, what does an angle in an equilateral triangle equal? Well, it equals 60 degrees, because 60, 180, divided by 3 angles makes 60 degrees. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start looking at some of these examples. It says, name 2 congruent angles. So for number 1, so if we look at number 1, what kind of triangle is it? It's isosceles. How do you know? Because of these tick marks here and here. So if those sides are congruent, that means what angles are congruent? Let's draw my diagonals. So angle S and angle R. So angle R is congruent to angle S. If I go ahead and I look at the next one, looking at the triangle, find the measure of AB and AC. So AB and AC, those are sides, not angles, because they're line segments. So go to my triangle. What is my triangle? It's equilateral. How do I know? Because these arcs tell me all my angles are congruent. So that means all my sides are congruent. Because if all my angles are congruent, that means all my sides are congruent. So if that's 11, that's 11, and that's 11. AB equals 11, and AC equals 11. And we would just put U for units because we don't know how many units they are. Number 3 is where it gets a little more entertaining. It says if DEF is 90, so DEF is 90, that's this, that's 90. Find the value of X and Y. All right, so if I just erase that for right now, and I'll come back to that in a second. Let's break it up. Let's see. If I look at the one where I have numbers, so this is the triangle where I have numbers first, right? What can I conclude about that triangle? I can conclude it's isosceles because this angle is congruent to that angle, which means its corresponding sides are congruent. So if that's 3, that's 3. Okay, so I filled in everything I need to know for that triangle, green triangle. Let's look at another triangle. So let's look at the triangle on the left. What do you notice about that triangle? Well, it's equilateral because I have these 3 ticks. So if that's 3, that's 3, and then it's 3. So because my orange triangle is equilateral, X is an angle measure, right? So what does X equal? 60 degrees, because all angles in an equilateral triangle are 60, because 180 divided by 3 is 60. So then how would I find the length of Y? Y is this big side, so Y equals what? Well, I have 3 here and 3 here. To make the whole, I add them together, and I got 6. Okay? So I want you to pause this video, and I want you to try example 4 on your own. When you finish example 4, unpause it, and we'll go over it. If you look at example 4, I notice it's an isosceles triangle because of these tick marks. So 50 corresponds to that side, so that means this side corresponds to that angle, so this angle is 50 degrees. So then how do I find what's called the vertex angle? That angle up there is called the vertex angle. How do I find that? Well, all angles in a triangle add up to equal 180. So 50 plus 50 plus question mark equals 180. So I have 100 plus the question mark equals 180. So that angle up there is going to be 80 degrees. So hopefully you're doing okay. Let's go ahead and let's scroll. Whoa. I want you to look at the problems on the back, and I want you to try to do these problems on your own. When you finish, it's not letting me scroll properly. Let's see if I can do it this way. Here we go. When you finish, I want you to come and check your answers with the answer key, and I will answer any questions that you might have.